Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear my voice clearly, I believe. Maybe somebody can respond.
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay, thank you. I see that 4 of 5 presenters has already here, so I think we can start our session. Let me open this session. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, the presenters and participants of this session. Welcome to the parallel session of International Conference on Advance in Data Science, E-Learning and Information System, or ICADES 2025. My name is Raulia Rizky, and I am honored to serve as the moderator for this session. Today, we have a series of remarkable presentations that will explore the subtopic of data science for health, such as stunting detection, myocardial, and respiratory. Before we begin, allow me to outline the agenda for this session. Each presenter will have a maximum of 10 minutes to deliver the respective presentation. And at the 8th minute, there will be a reminder that there are only 2 minutes left to present. And at the 10th minute, I will state if the time is up. After that, there will be 5 minutes of question and answer segment. For online sessions, a maximum of 15 minutes per presenter for question and answer segments, but we can extend it up to 20 minutes if needed. So I kindly ask all the attendees to hold their questions until the question and answer segment after each presentation. And if a presenter is not ready to present within 1 minute of their scheduled time, we will proceed with the next presenter in the sequence. The presenter who was not ready will be rescheduled to present at the end of the session after all other presenters have finished. I hope it's clear for all the presenter. And during other presenter session, please mute your microphone unless permitted to speak. And as I see from the participant names, 4 of the presenters has already changed their profile name as required. That is the room number and ID number and the name of the presenter. But maybe one person haven't changed their name. I would like to confirm for Mr. Satria, are you a presenter of this session? If not, please kindly change your profile name because there is only 5 presenters for this room. Okay, and yeah, before we start with the presentation, I'd like to tell you the sequence of the presenter. The first to present their paper is Mr. Firdi Rizky Alnanda, and then followed by Miss Hijia Safiria. I'm sorry if I spell your name wrong. And the third one is Raihan Abdurrahman, Mr. Raihan Abdurrahman, I'm sorry. And the next one is Mr. Nugroho Rahmanto. And the last one will be Mr. Baginda Miraj Williamsyah. Okay. And as I see that all the presenters already changed their virtual backgrounds as instructed, except for Mr. Raihan, please show your face or please turn on the camera. Because we'd like to take a photo session, I believe, before all the presentations begin. Maybe for all the participants also can turn on their camera first for the photo session for this room. Maybe Mbak Sri Damai as the co-host can facilitate the photo session, please?
Okay, first I will take lead of this photo session. In 1, 2, 3. Once again, in 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sri Damai. Okay. Now, without further ado, let us welcome our first presenter, that is Mr. Firdy Rizky Elnanda, which will present a paper with the title of Machine Learning Solutions for Stunting Classification in Karya Jaya, a case study using KNN and SVM. Before the presentation, maybe I'd like to confirm with Mr. Elnanda, are you gonna present right now, or are you prepare a video beforehand?
I think I will present right now.
Okay. Okay, for Mr. Elnanda, you are welcome to present for 10 minutes.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present my research here on the 2025 International Conference on Advancement in Data Science, E-Learning, and Information System, or ICADES 2025 today. My name is Firdy Rizky Elnanda, and I'm excited to share with you my research titled Machine Learning Solution for Stunting Classification in Karya Jaya, a case study using KNN and SVM. We'll begin by discussing the significance of stunting and its impact, particularly in Indonesia and globally. This sets the stage for why addressing stunting is a critical public health issue. Next, I'll explain the data used in this research and the machine learning model we applied. The section will outline the structured approach we followed to ensure the result. Then, we will dive deeper into the model, focusing on the parameter and the specific kernel setting used for the classification. And finally, we'll conclude with the result where I'll present the evaluation metrics and discuss the implication of the finding in the context of stunting classification. Stunting is a major health issue in Indonesia. Stunting is a failure to grow in children under age of 5 caused by severe malnutrition, especially under the first 1,000 days of life. An estimated 165 million children under 5 are stunted, although mortality has been regarded as the tip of iceberg of malnutrition. Stunting has a various adverse effect on the child's growth and development. Indonesia have one of the highest number of the stunting cases, ranking 5th out of the 88 countries worldwide. In 2015, roughly 37.8% of Indonesian children were estimated to be stunted, but by 2018, the number has dropped to 31%. This improvement still not up to WHO requirement. To effectively address stunting in toddlers, developing an appropriate classification system is crucial. Research has shown that machine learning model can provide reliable prediction in this domain. For instance, the K nearest neighbor or KNN algorithm has been proved effective in predicting stunting situation, as demonstrated in previous studies with an outstanding accuracy of 93.67%. On the other hand, SVM or support vector machine, when tested with 4 kernel types, namely linear, polynomial, RBF, and sigmoid, the RBF kernel achieved the highest accuracy of 92.65%. Another study utilizing the random forest method in 2023 achieved an accuracy of 87.75% when predicting stunting cases. This finding highlights the potential of machine learning in stunting prediction, and it motivates us to explore which method perform best for specific condition in Karya Jaya. To determine which of the two machine learning models, namely KNN and SVM, is the most successful, a detailed comparison is presented. The study also applied a synthetic minority oversampling technique, or SMOOT, to address the significant class imbalance in the dataset, enhancing the machine learning model's performance in stunting cases. For this study, the data was collected from the Karyajaya Health Center, comprising of 8,000 records. These records were crucial for understanding stunting cases in the region. To train the model, we used the height for age feature as the target variable. This feature is widely recognized as a key indicator to stunting classification for toddler. However, one of the biggest challenges is data imbalance. As illustrated in the figure, out of the entire dataset, 99.3% of the record belong to the non-standard or normal cases, while 0.0% represented standard cases. To redress this, we implement strategies to mitigate the impact of this imbalance, which I'll discuss later in this methodology. To ensure the accuracy and reliability of our machine learning models, we perform several preprocessing steps. First, the filter selection. We carefully selected the relevant feature, focusing on those with the highest correlation for stunting classification. And then data is encoded. Categorical variable were encoded into numerical formats such as gender and height to age feature. And then outlier in the dataset were replaced with the median values to handling the outlier. This method ensured that the data remain robust without being skewed by extreme values. For the addressing the data imbalance, we use SMOOT, and this technique generated synthetic samples for the minority class, balancing the training data and enhancing the model ability to classify standard cases. After preprocessing, we trained two machine learning models, namely KNN and SVM. For the KNN, the metric is Euclidean distance, and the number of neighbors is set to 5, and the weight is distance-based, allowing closer neighbor to have a greater influence of the predicate outcome. For the SVM kernel, we use for kernel, which is linear, radial basis function, or RBF, polynomial, and sigmoid. To evaluate the performance of the model, we use 4 key metrics, namely accuracy, precision, recall, and F1 score. Accuracy to measure the overall correctness of the model, precision to indicate the proportion of the correctly predicted positive cases, recall to measure the model ability to correctly identify actual positive cases, and F1 score provide a balance between precision, recall, and this is especially useful for imbalanced dataset. For the confusion matrix, in this research, the true positive cases correctly predicted as non-standard. For true negative, cases correctly predicted as standard. For false positive, cases incorrectly predicted as non-standard when they are actually standard. For false negative, cases incorrectly predicted as standard when they are actually non-standard. For the KNN model, the KNN model achieved high true positive value of 1,750, indicating this effectiveness in correctly identifying stunting cases. The RBF kernel delivered a balanced performance with relatively high true positive with 1,509 and moderate false negative and false positive value. The linear kernel showed minimal false positive, and the polynomial and the sigmoid have the worst result for the confusion matrix. And the result,
There's 2
Uh,
minutes left.
the KNN model achieved the highest accuracy of 99.2 and the F1 score of 64.8%, suggests a reasonable balance in handling both positive and negative cases. With the accuracy of 95.9% and F1 score of 49.55%, the RBF kernel strikes a balance between precision and recall. And the moderate accuracy of 74.81% for the polynomial and the F1 score of 45.1, and the lowest is sigmoid with the accuracy of 36.55% and the F1 score of 27.18%. The KNN model clearly outperformed the SVM variants in both accuracy and F1 score, making the most effective approach for stunting classification in this case study. Among the SVM kernels, the RBF kernel showed the most promise with the pretty good accuracy and F1 score balance. Future work could focus on optimizing the parameters of these top performing models and exploring hybrid techniques. To build this work, we aim to enhance feature, explore advanced technique such as deep neural network or ensemble learning, and adapt and implement this approach on a national scale, collaborating with policymaker and the healthcare provider to maximize its impact. By addressing these areas, we hope to create a comprehensive practical tool to help improve child health outcomes. This is for the reference. And thank you for your time and attention. I look forward to your question and discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Elnanda, for the insightful presentation. And now we will open the question and answer segment. Is there any presenters or participant would like to? Okay, Mr. Raihan Abdurrahman. Okay, please state your question.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, moderator. I want to ask about in your slide why you mention and use 4 CPM kernels instead of using only the base kernel, which is RBF. Kenapa enggak?
Okay, is that the question? Mr. Elnanda, would you like to answer the questions now?
I think thank you Raihan Abdurrahman for the question. I think the answer would be like by testing linear, polynomial, sigmoid, and RBF kernel, we can compare their strength and weakness in classifying stunting case. I think if only RBF kernel were used, we wouldn't have a solid basis for proving that it performed better than other. By proving the accuracy comparison, we can conclude that RBF is the best choice based on the result among all of the kernel, not just some assumption. If another dataset with different characteristic than this one used maybe in the future, other kernel might perform better on that dataset. Also, keeping multiple option also allows for adaptability in different scenarios. I think that's for the answer.
Okay, Mr. Raihan, are you satisfied with the answer? Or would you like to ask another question?
I think it's enough. Thank you for the answer, Mr. Firdi.
Okay, is there any question, any more question from other presenters or participants? No more question? If there's no more question, I would like to ask a question for Mr. Elnanda. So I'd like to confirm if the purpose of your study is to compare which one is the best methods you use between KNN, K-nearest neighbors, and SVM, super vector machines. Is that right?
It's correct.
Okay, so what's the conclusions what is the best method to for the case study of your research?
I'd like to answer. For this research, the best model is currently the KNN compared to SVM with all of the kernel. There might be some other models like maybe deep learning model or advanced ensemble learning that might be work better in this data set. But currently in this research, the KNN is the best model among all of the kernel and the SVM model.
Okay. Maybe you can elaborate more why you choose these two algorithms specifically in your study.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
I'd like to know how do you come to use these two specific algorithm for your study? Why you choose these two specific methods?
Okay, I understand. The KNN is used for this data set because for this study is the KNN is easy to understand and for implement because KNN is one of the non-parametric algorithm, and this work well with this kind of data set, which is one-dimensional data set, and also works well with small to medium data set too. And KNN algorithms is wide application for both classification and regression tasks, which in this study we will use to classify stunting. And pretty much it's not pretty complex algorithm, but the result is pretty well compared to the more complex algorithm. For
Okay.
the yeah.
Okay, I think I get your answer. Maybe because of the time constraint, I would like to conclude the first presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Firdi Rizky Elnanda, for the presentation. And now we shall move on to the next presenter, which is Miss Hijia Saveria, with the title of Stunting Classification Among Toddlers Using Decision Tree C4.5 in Brastagi City. Before the presentation, I'd like to confirm, are you gonna present your study right now, or do you prepare a video beforehand? Miss?
I'm gonna present right now.
Oh, okay. If you're ready, then you have 10 minutes to present your study.
Is my screen clear?
Yes, I can see it clearly.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the opportunity. So hello everyone, it's a great honor for me to be here today to present our paper on the topic Stunting Classification Among Toddlers Using Decision Tree C4.5 in Brastagi City. My name is Hijia Saveria and I'm honored to be the first author of this paper alongside my co-author, Mr. Putuhari Gunawan. So I will show you what will be covered in this following presentation. So firstly, I will explain the main problem of this research, which is stunting in toddlers. And then I will explain the decision tree C4.5 as a proposed solution of stunting. And then I will explain each flow of this research stage. And I will explain how the model performs, what are the limitations, and lastly, I'll tell the conclusion of this research. In this section, I will outline the main issue addressed in this research. So first, stunting is a condition where a child's height significantly falls below the average for their age. And based on the World Health Organization, in 2022, there were 148.1 million children under 5 are stunted. And based on the dataset in Brastagi City, out of 265 toddlers, there are 83 toddlers who fall into the stunting category. And then the factors that cause stunting are prolonged malnutrition, prolonged malnutrition, inadequate nutritional intake, poor parenting, unbearable environment, and also the stunting affects the physical growth and poor cognitive development for the toddler in the long term. So for the proposed solution, this research praised the decision tree C4.5 that is developed by J.R. Quinlan as an improvement of the ID3 algorithm. This method also can handle both numerical and categorical attributes by converting the numerical attributes into the specific limits as well as applying pruning to prevent the overfitting. And then the advantage of this method are first, the data flexibility, which is can handle numerical and categorical, and then ability to deal with the data imbalance, for example, with the pruning method, and then easy interpretation that the result is decision tree that is easily understood by human, including the health workers. And also the decision tree C4.5 give the high accuracy to detect the classification. So here's the flow that show the research process from the beginning into the end. So first, process began with inputting the data set and followed by the data preprocessing, which include removing the irrelevant columns, handling the blank values, converting each columns into the integers, and changing the category labels into the non-stunting and also stunting. And then the unbalanced data was handled by increasing the amount of minority class, which is stunting class, through augmentation and pruning to create the synthetic sample. And then the dataset divided into the features and target, and then separated into the training and testing data. And then the model was trained using the decision tree C4.5 and evaluated with the metrics such as precision, recall, F1 score, accuracy, the confusion metrics to ensure optimal model performance in stunting classification. Here's the dataset. There are 356 toddlers data entries from Brastagi Health Center in Karo Regency, North Sumatra in March 2024 with 273 normal category data and 83 stunting category data. Then the attributes that we use are gender, birth weight, birth height, birth month, which is age range in months, and then weight for age, and then height for age. And to handle the missing values, a pre-processing step was performed by deleting the entries that had blank values in the weight height column. And then the total data that were augmented is 500 on the underrepresented class, which is stunting class. And then here's the model performance. We use naive Bayes as a comparison model because it's simple and effective probability-based approach, particularly suitable for the smaller dataset or the dataset with non-complex relationship between the features. And then as we can see in the table, the decision tree C4.5 give the higher accuracy than naive Bayes, which is it gives 86%, and for naive Bayes it gives 83% accuracy. And then for the best parameters, we use max depth to limit the tree depth to prevent overfitting, and then max features to enhance model generalization, and then min sample slip to ensure the conservative prediction, and also min sample split to increase the selectivity in splitting data. And as we can see, the decision tree C4.5 outperforms naive Bayes in terms of accuracy and balance classification. And also, the decision tree is the preferred method for stunting classification due its higher accuracy and give the better balance between the precision and recall for the both classes. So let's pay attention of the model evaluation, that the accuracy across 5 folds was stable, with the first fold is 80%, with the second and third fold is 82.86%, and for the fourth folds is 88.49%, and for the fifth fold it gives 85.91%, and it is resulting an average accuracy of 84%. As we can see, the highest accuracy is the fourth fold, that shows that the model can capture the data pattern very well in the subset. And also the lowest accuracy is the fourth fold, but it still shows the decent performance, but may be affected by the unbalanced distribution of the data. And then the small differences in interfolds accuracy indicate that the model is very stable despite potential sensitivity to the data distribution. And then here's the limitation and suggestion. So first, the false positive, there are 18 samples of non-stunting words were misclassified as stunting. And then for the false negative, although relatively low, there are 3 stunting samples were misclassified as non-stunting. So as we can see, there was a prediction bias with non-stunting cases sometimes being classified as stunting. And this imbalance highlights the need to improve the model fairness and reduce the bias, especially in the non-stunting class. And to address this issue, better class balancing techniques such as smooth undersampling and further optimization of model parameters are required. And for the conclusion, the decision tree C4.5 model shows the good predictive ability for stunting classification with accuracy and F1 score micro average of 86% and optimized decision tree C4.5 parameters such as max depth, max features, mean sample sleeve, and mean sample split improve the performance. And although the naive bias showed 83% accuracy, the decision tree C4.5 outperformed it. And the main features affecting stunting classification are gender and height. And for the future improvements, should focus on the hyperparameter optimization and addressing the class imbalance using smooth and undersampling for a better accuracy across the classes. So that's all for my presentation. With topic stunting research in Brastagi City using decision tree C4.5. And I hope that in the future, this research can be useful for the stunting classifications, especially for the health workers. Please apologize if there are any mistakes during this presentation, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Hijia Saferia, for the insightful presentation. I quite enjoy your presentation, in fact. So for the question and answer segments, is there any question? Oh, there are 4 people in this room that raised their hand. Maybe we start from the first name that I see for the question and answer segment. The first one to raise his or her hand was Miss Atalia Malika. Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Please state your question.
Thank you, Miss Hijia Saferia, for the insightful presentation. I want to ask something based on this research. How does stunting in Brastagi City compare to the national level? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. So this research shows that stunting is still a serious problem in Brastagi City. There are 365 under 5% but around 83 children are stunting. So this is figure slightly higher than the national average in 2022, which is 21.6%. This means that the condition in Brastagi City is still require more attention, especially in terms of improving the nutrition, how the parenting and access the health service, and also the clean water. And by using the decision tree C4.5, we hope that this research help the health workers to identify the children at risk of the stunting earlier so that more appropriate and effective interpretation can be made. Is it clear, Ms. Atta?
Clear enough. Thank you so much, Miss Hijia.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question and answer. Because we have limited time, maybe I will allow one more question from another presenter that already raised his hand, Mr. Raihan Abdurrahman. But maybe before you state your question, I'd like to just tell the other participants that the questions is not delivered in this session. Maybe you can please approach Ms. Hijia Saferia after this session. Thank you. Okay, now for the next question from Mr. Raihan Abdurrahman, I believe that raised his hand.
Okay, thank you, moderator. I want to ask to Miss Hegia. Wait. How is the data split for training and testing? Can you mention the percentage because you have not mentioned it in the presentation earlier? Also, what is the relation behind choosing the division? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the question, Mr. Raihan. So, in this research, we split the data into 18% training data and 20% testing data. So this ratio was chosen because it is balanced in providing enough data for the model to learn the patterns, while leaving enough the data to test the accuracy of the prediction also. And in addition, the stratified sampling method was used, so the proportion between stunting and also non-stunting data is maintained in the training and testing the data set. And this is important because from the beginning, the amount of non-stunting data is much greater than the stunting data. So with this division, the model can recognize the patterns well without tending to favor one class. So it is still able to provide accurate prediction of the new data. Is it clear, Mr. Raihan?
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Hegia. It's clear.
Thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you for the questions. I'm sorry for other participant. Maybe you can ask Miss Hijia personally after this session for another questions because there is a constraint of the time here. But before we move on to the next presentation, there is something I'd like to ask Miss Hijia myself. Just a short question. I'm curious about why you choose Brastagi City. You you said that there are several risk factors in for stunting in Brastagi. Maybe is there any like local factors or data sets you consider unique in Brastagi City other than another city in Indonesia?
So actually, I use the dataset because I live in here and I
Okay.
reach the dataset maybe easily, I think. Yeah.
Oh, so there's no like something different other than other city in Indonesia, maybe, yeah?
Not
You still
really.
haven't found that yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Miss Hijia Saferia, for the presentation and for answering the questions. And now we can move on to the next presenter. The next presenter in line is Mr. Raihan Abdurrahman, which will present his study about classification of stunting in toddlers from Karya Jaya using extreme gradient boosting and k-nearest neighbors. Mr. Raihan Abdurrahman, are you ready? And do you want to present your study now, or do you prepare a video beforehand?
Okay, I'm ready. Let me source my
Okay,
screen.
you will present now.
Okay.
Okay, so you're welcome to present for 10 minutes, Mr. Abdurrahman, please.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Raihan Abdurrahman, and today I will present about our study, title case study on stunting classification in toddlers from Karya Jaya South Sumatra, using extreme gradient boosting and k-nearest nickbors. This research was conducted in collaboration with Mr. Iwayan Palton Anugisa and Mr. Putu Heri Gunawan. First, overview. Stunting is significant health issue caused by chronic malnutrition. It affects the physical and cognitive development of children under 5 years old, which can have long-term consequence. And then for their overall well-being and productivity. In Indonesia, stunting prevalence reached 21.6 in 2022, highlighting the urgency of this issue. To address this, the Indonesian government has set a national target to reduce stunting prevalence to 14% by 2024. Machine learning model like those utilized in this study provide a powerful tool to support this goal by enabling early detection and timely intervention. This model can play a crucial role in achieving the government target. And then for the related work, the first random forest has been effective in handling imbalanced dataset, achieving an F1 score of 65.44. It outperformed logistic regression and naive Bayes by maintaining a good balance between precision and recall. And then K-nearest-Nigbor has shown strong performance, reaching up to 97 accuracy with optimal settings like key equal 3. And then boosting technique further improved its accuracy to 97.4. And XGBoost consistently deliver exceptional result. For example, a study in Papua New Guinea used it to predict stunting in children under 5, outperforming other algorithms in precision. The main goal of this study is to leverage machine learning models, specifically extreme gradient boosting and K-nearest-Nigbors, to classify stunting using health data from toddlers. Move to the methodology. For this study, we utilize a dataset comprising 3,000 physical measurement of toddlers collected from the Karyajaya Health Center in South Sumatra. The dataset include features such as gender, birth weight, weight, Lila, and several derived features like weight for age and height for age and the height for age z-score. The height for age z-score serves as the target variable for our machine learning models. A child is classified as stunted if their z-score falls below -2 standard deviation based on WHO growth standard. Moving on the data pre-processing, several steps were applied to ensure the dataset was clean and suitable for machine learning analysis. First, we perform filter selection, reduce the dataset to the most relevant features such as weight, height, Lila, and weight for age and height for age. This help to minimize noise and improve the accuracy of the models. Next, we applied the encoding to convert categorical variables into numerical formats, ensuring compatibility with machine learning algorithms. And then to handle outlier, the interquartile range method was used to identify and remove extreme values in key feature like weight, height, and Lila. This improve the distribution of data as saw in the box plot before and after pre-processing. And then finally, we address the issue of class imbalance. The dataset consists of only 62 standard case compared to 2038 normal case. To balance the class, we use Smooth, which generated synthetic samples for the minority class. This ensure fairness during model training and improve the sensitivity of the machine learning model. And then for the models, we implemented the two models, extreme gradient boosting and K-nearest-Nigbors. For the first models, XGBoost, to address the class imbalance in our dataset, we tune the scalpus weight parameter using GradSearch CV, which adjusts the weight of the minority class to ensure balanced learning. And then the hyperparameter for XGBoost were set. Learning rate equal to 0.05 for a steady convergence rate. And then max depth equal to 3 to prevent overfitting by limiting the complexity of the decision tree. And then an estimator equal to 100 to increase the model ability to capture pattern in the data. And then the second model is K-nearest-Nigbor. We use the default Euclidean distance metric to calculate the distance. And then the number of Nigbor was set to n Nigbor equal to 5, and the weighting method was weight equal to distance, ensuring closer Nigbor will have a stronger influence on prediction. And then we go to performance metric. And a classification test such as stunting prediction, we use a confusion matrix to understand the model performance. The confusion matrix consists of 4 key components. The first is true negative, case correctly classified as non-stunted. And then false positive, non-stunted case incorrectly classified as stunted. And then false negative, stunted case incorrectly classified as non-stunted. And then true positive, case correctly classified as stunted. This metric allow us to evaluate the model performance, especially in imbalanced dataset like ours, where stunted cases are much fewer than non-stunted case. Let's take a look at the conversion metric for those two models, XGBoost and KNN. First, XGBoost, it classified almost all cases correctly with only one false positive and one false negative. This demonstrates excellent performance, especially in handling imbalanced dataset. And then now KNN also performed well, but it had 12 false positive and 3 false negative. This result is slightly lower precision and recall compared to XGBoost. And then the result, the table show that XGBoost performed better than KNN in all metrics. It handles class imbalance effectively and maintain a good balance between precision and recall. Therefore, XGBoost is the preferred model for stunting classification in this study. For the conclusion, this study proposed test two masonry model, XGBoost and KNN, to classify stunting in toddler using a balanced dataset. Both models were evaluated on key metrics such as accuracy, precision, recall, and F1 score. The result demonstrate that the XGBoost model outperformed KNN, achieving the highest testing accuracy of 99.93 and F1 score 99.62. This result highlight XGBoost ability to handle complex dataset and class imbalance effectively. In comparison, the KNN model achieved testing accuracy 99.43 and F1 score of 93.89, which, while strong, fell short of XGBoost performance. This finding emphasized the potential of XGBoost as a robust tool for early stunting detection, enabling timely intervention and supporting public health to initiate to reduce stunting prevalence. For future work, to ensure better regionalization and robustness, we aim to evaluate the performance of both XGBoost and KNN model on external data set. This step will validate the model's applicability across different population and contexts. And then the future study could include additional data such as genetic and environmental characteristic which are significant.
Sorry, there's 1 minute left, Mr. Abdurrahman.
Significant factors influencing stunting. This will enhance the model precision and applicability across various demographic group. And then this is the research for this research are listed here. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abdurrahman, for the insightful presentation. Now we're open the question and answer segment. Is there anyone who would like to ask Mr. Abdurrahman? Okay, there are two people who raised their hand. Maybe the first one is Mr. Sayid Raihan Mula Sela. I'm sorry if I misspell your name. Please state your question.
Yes, you spell my name correctly, Miss. Okay. So for Mr. Raihan, thank you for the presentation. First of all, I would like to ask about after you did the presentation, I'm curious about what impact did the feature selection process have on the performance of your models? Please elaborate on that one. And could you also elaborate on actually how the interquartile range IQR method will help improve the dataset? Thank you. Please answer the question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ted, for the question. Feature selection is played a crucial role in improving model performance.
Sorry, Mr. Abdurrahman, your voice is not clearly
Okay.
heard.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Said, for the question. Okay, feature selection is played a crucial role in improving model performance by eliminating irrelevant or redundant features, which could lead to overfitting. The interquartile range method help identify and remove extreme outlier in the dataset, which could otherwise distort the model's ability to generalize. By removing these outliers, I ensure that the model was trained on more representative data, leading to more accurate prediction and better overall performance. Is it clear, Mr. Said?
Thank you, Mr. Rehan, for the answer. It is very clear.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Said, for the question. So we can move to the next question, maybe from Miss Hijia.
Okay, thank you for opportunity. I want to ask, in your future work, you mentioned incorporating the genetic and environmental data to improve the precision of the models. So how do you plan to integrate such data, and what challenges do you anticipate in this process? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Haigia. In future work, I plan to integrate genetic and environmental data by collaborating with healthcare provider to assess this additional information. This data could include factors like family history, nutrition, and living condition, all of which can influence stunting outcomes. A key challenge in integrating such as data is ensuring its availability and consistency across different regions. Additionally, incorporating genetic data require careful consideration of privacy and ethical concern.
Okay, is that answer your question, Miss Hijia?
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we still have 1 minute left. There's one more question, maybe from Mr. Nugroho Rahmanto.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Roya, for the opportunity. I would like to what we can conclude about the overfitting based on the evaluation result for the XGBoost models.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nugroho, for the question. The evaluation result for XGBoost show no sign of overfitting because the trend and the test metrics are identical across all faults. This indicates that the model generalizes well to unseen data, and XGBoost is a powerful model that includes regulation mechanisms such as the scale post weight parameter are used here, which help the model avoid overfitting by adjusting the weight of the minority class and in imbalanced data set. Additionally, the consistent performance across all faults suggests that the model is not overly complex and overly fitting to the training data, but rather capture the underlying pattern well. Maybe that's it, the answer, Mr. Nugroho. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Raihan Abdurrahman, for the presentation and for the answer for all 3 questions. If there's no other question, then maybe we can move to the next presentation because the time is limited. Thank you very much. Okay, so for the next presenter is Mr. Nugroho Rahmanto, which will present his study of myocardial infarction identification in electrocardiogram signals using long short-term memory transfer learning, LSTMTL. Are you ready to present, Mr. Nugroho Rahmanto?
Yeah, I'm ready to present. I hope my screen can see clearly.
Yeah, I can see your slides clearly. Okay, you're welcome to present your study for the next 10 minutes.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Nugroho Rahmanto from Telkom University, and I am here to present our research on myocardial infarction identification in electrocardiogram signal using long short-term memory transfer learning, or LSTMTL. This research is a collaborative between myself and my lecturer, Mr. Satria Mandala, as a second author. Let's begin to the presentation. Here's my structure of the presentation today. We will begin with the introduction, followed by the discussion of the related works, and then the highlight of the novelty of our research. After that, we will move on to the research method, present the result, and finally our conclusion. Okay, let's get started with the introduction. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of the death worldwide. According to the data from the Ministry of Health, over 4.2 million Indonesians suffer from the cardiovascular disease. Additionally, the World Health Organization, or WHO, reports that more than 17.9 million people die from cardiovascular disease every year, with the majority of these deaths caused by the myocardial infarction, also known commonly as a heart attack. Providing early detection to the general public can significantly reduce the death rate from the heart disease by enabling timely access to specialized care. This is especially crucial in the areas with the limited medical personnel, such as a cardiologist or heart doctor. Through this research, we aim to make a meaningful contribution to the early detection of the myocardial infarction, offering a potential solution for the better healthcare accessibility. Okay, so what is the myocardial infarction? Myocardial infarction is occur when there is an ST elevation on the ECG signal, which is represented by the ST segment of the waveform rising above the baseline. As shown as the image, the red arrow highlight the ST elevation segment, a key indicator of the myocardial infarction. This elevation is critical for identifying the condition and guiding the early intervention. With the understanding, okay, let's move to the related works. Previous studies on the myocardial infarction detection have rely on the image-based approach. Utilizing the deep learning models like convolution networks, this method focuses on the extracting feature from the ECG image and have shown promising accuracy in detecting myocardial infarction. However, they often face a challenge such as a need for the large level dataset and a limited ability to capture the temporal dynamics inherent in the ECG signal. Okay, let's move on to the novelty of our research. The novelty of our approach lies in the use of the long short-term memory, or LSTM, networks combined with the transfer learning for detecting myocardial infarction. Unlike the previous method that rely on the image processing, which often require the high computing unit power and label dataset image, our approach focus on the time series data, ECG data. This make our method is more efficient and practical, as it does not demand expensive hardware or high performance computing unit. By incorporating the transfer learning, our model also get a benefit from the pre-trained knowledge, which improve its performance and adaptability even with the limited data. This combination of efficiency and accuracy makes our approach well suited for the real-world application, especially in areas with the limited computational research or access to advanced medical equipment. Okay, so why we choose the LSTM, or long short-term memory? Firstly, we must know that when we're working with the ECG signal, it's important to understand that this data isn't just static image or a simple number. This is a time series data. ECG signal is represent electrical activity of a heart over a certain period, capturing the rhythm and the pattern of the heartbeats. To effective process the sequential data, we need the model that designed to handle temporal relationship. This is where the LSTM, or long short-term memory, excels. Its architecture is specifically built to analyze pattern over time, making it perfect fit for the ECG data, and this is the main reason why we chose the LSTM for our research. The data used was the open source data from the PTB-XL, which includes several levels than the other myocardial infarction. There were more than 18,000 patients with more than 21,000 ECG data records. The data came from a hospital in Germany, the National Meteorology Institute of Germany, or we can call PTB. The data has two frequency form, 100 as a low frequency data and the 500 Hertz is a high frequency data. The data we'll use is only labor norm or normal and MI or myocardial infarction with a frequency of 100 Hertz with a range of 10 seconds. For the methods, our research consists of two scenarios. First, we create a baseline model without tuning to evaluate the initial potential of the model before further improvement. In scenario 1, we retrain the baseline model using the new data, while in this scenario 2, we apply hyperparameter tuning to enhance the model performance further. To address the issue of uneven and data distribution, we use k-fold cross validation. This method splits the data into 5 folds, where each fold takes turn to being the validation set, and the remaining folds are used for the trading. The process help minimize the risk of the overfitting and the underfitting caused by the imbalance or poorly distributing data, providing a more reliable and robust assessment of the model's performance. The scenarios are designed to evaluate the impact of the transfer learning and tuning on detection performance. We use four evaluation metrics here. One is accuracy, and then sensitivity, and then specificity, and the F1 score. Okay, let's move on to the result. Our model is achieved an overall accuracy of 89.36% on the best performing port, highlighting the effectiveness of the combining of LSTM or long short-term memory with the transfer learning. As shown as the figure 1 and 2, the difference between the training and the testing is have a minimal gap, indicating that the model fits the data well without the overfitting or even underfitting. Additionally, in the figure 3, illustrates that the fold 1, 2, and 5 showed significant improvement in accuracy, emphasizing the critical role of the tuning process in maximizing the model performance. The comparison table further support the findings. It demonstrates that the model with the tuning unable to outperform the other model on the same dataset. However, the LSTM with tuning successfully achieved with the highest accuracy, outperforming all the others model and stabilizing its effectiveness for myocardial infarction detection. In conclusion, our LSTM-TL model has demonstrated the ability to detect myocardial infarction with high accuracy, achieving over than 89.36% accuracy. The integration of the transfer learning and hyperparameter tuning play a significant role to improve the model's performance and adaptability. However, the use of a single dataset limits the model generalizability. We recommend future search to focus on the incorporating diverse datasets and exploring alternative LSTM architecture to enhance its applicability across the different scenarios. Furthermore, this study can serve as a foundation for developing a real-time detection system, paving the way practical implementation in clinical and remote healthcare settings that will significantly contribute to advancing research and improving early detection of myocardial infarction. Okay, this is the end of our presentation today. Thank you for your attention and support. If you have any question or would like to discuss this research further, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to engage in a Q&A session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rahmanto, for the presentation. It is quite fast because we have like 2 minutes left for the presentation. Actually, maybe we can add that time for the question and answer segments. So, is there anyone who wants to ask Mr. Rahmanto about the study? Okay, I see 2 people raise their hand. Maybe the first question is from Miss Alfisa Widya. Please state your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your opportunity. I have question to Mr. Nugroho. How do you overcome the risk of overfitting or underfitting in the model training process?
Okay, thank you for a very good question, Mr. Alfisa. To overcome the risk of the overfit and the underfit of the studying during the training process, I implement several fallback functions including the early stopping to stop the training process before the overfit occurs. Besides that, I also use the k-fault cross-validation to generalize the data, which can also reduce the possibility of overfitting. The result can be seen in the comparison diagram of the training and testing process, which only has a small gap, which also indicates that in this research there is no underfitting or even overfitting. I hope that can answer your question. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Are you satisfied with the answer, Mr. Alvies? I'm sorry that I call you wrong before.
It's okay, Miss. It's clear. Thank you for the explanation,
Okay,
Mr.
thank you for the question as well. So the next question is from Mr. Raihan Abdurrahman, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nugroho. I want to ask about in myocardial infarction research, is there a dataset that we can use to solve the problem of data limitation?
Okay, it's a very good question, Mr. Raihan. If you talk about the dataset, I have done some research with the ECG data before, and I found some of the ECG data that I can use, but most of them don't have a large data records like this PTB-XL data. It's only have around 500 until 1,000 records. This is also the reason why I chose the PTB-XL as the main dataset, because it has more than 21,000 records, which is very much more other than other data. And this PTB-XL dataset is also the latest open resource ECG data published in 2022, which is still relevant for now. I hope that answered your question. Thank you for asking.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nugroho. It's very clear.
Okay, thank you for the question, Mr. Raihan. Is there any more question? Okay, if there's no more question, we still have some times left. Maybe I will ask a question for Mr. Rahmanto. If I heard it right, you say that there is a possibility for your study to integrate it for the real world application. How do you envision it being integrated into a real-time diagnostic systems? And are there any challenges you foresee in deploying this model in like hospitals or emergency care environments?
The challenge is quite more difficult because we need some sensors and then the device that it must be complete to make the real world applicability. So it's very challenge to make the models can be used in the real world applicability, but it's not impossible. It's possible because there is some of like researcher is also have make some device that can make in the real-time detection. So it's possible, but for now we need some device, and there's not it's very expensive, like $1,000, I think.
Okay, so it's a device problem for now.
It's a device problem. It's very expensive.
Make the real-time applications challenging. Okay, maybe another question? No? Okay, if there's no more question, thank you very much for Mr. Nugroho Rahmanto for the presentation and the question and answer session. Now we move to the last presenter. That is Mr. Baginda Miraj Williamsyah with the paper. The title is Respiratory Rate Measuring System Using Accelerometer and Gyroscope Sensor in Android Smartphone with Variation Mode Decomposition. Okay,
Yes,
before, Mr. Williamsyah already confirmed that he would like to play the presentation video that he already prepared beforehand. I'd like to ask for help from Miss Ridamai, or who's sharing the screen right now?
I will share the screen, Miss.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Miss Ridamai. Maybe you can play the video presentation right now.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for the time that has given to me on this very happy occasion on ICHA Days 2025. In here, I would like to represent to you about our study and our research about respiratory rate measuring system using accelerometer and gyroscope sensor in Android smartphone with variational mode decomposition or VMD. In this research, we are consist 7 researchers. The first one, I would like to introduce myself also as the presenter. My name is Baginda Mi'raj Williamsyah. And then the other researcher, that is Mr. Fasha Abian, Mr. Ahmad Rizal, Mr. Muhammad Hablul Bahri, Mr. Afrisha, Ms. Rahmawati, and Mr. Debriani. This is the content list of our presentation. This consists 6 points. The first one is introduction. Okay, for the background, respiration rate is vital for monitoring health and also detecting irregularities. And traditional devices are costly, non-portable, and confined to clinical setting that limiting accessibility. And the problem statement we found in several studies and also several methods for the respiration signal extraction, like method EMD and also Fourier transform, have struggled with noise and also signal stability, especially for non-stationary data. This research want to adopt variational mode decomposition or VMD for better noise reduction and stable respiration signal extraction. Okay, next for the objective, we want to develop a smartphone-based respiration measurement system using accelerometer and gyroscope. And we want to employ VMD for signal decomposition and peak detection to calculate respiration rate. And last, we want to evaluate the system accuracy and reliability. For the contribution, the first one is about the sensor smartphone. We want to leverage built-in sensor in smartphone to cost-effective respiration monitoring. The second is VMD application. We want to introduce VMD for the precise signal decomposition and noise reduction. And the last is accessible solution. We want to offer a portable and affordable alternative to traditional medical devices. Next is theoretical framework about the frequency of human respiration. In adult, the normal respiration range is between 0.2 until 0.3 Hz, or we can count as 12 until 8 breaths per minute. The relevance in the study, we are using 50 Hz sampling frequency. It exists the NPS criterion, ensure accurate capturing of respiration signal within 0.2 until 0.3 range, while we are avoiding signal distortion or aliasing and maintaining the efficient data processing. In this research, we have challenged the respiration rate are non-stationary or vary over time and often mixed with noise. So we have to require advanced method to separate the primary signal from the interface. Next, about the variational mode decomposition or VMD. What is VMD? VMD is a method for decomposing a complex signal into several components called intrinsic mode function. Each EMF will be representing a specific frequency range. Why we are using VMD? The first one about the noise reduction. VMD can separate noise from the primary signal, and then VMD produce component or EMF with consistent frequency. In the study, we are using primary signal of the respiration within 0.2 until 0.3 Hz range, so it will be produced more stable and also more accurate. How does VMD work? The first one, the raw data or the raw signal will be analyzed in frequency domain. And then the signal will be decomposed into multiple EMF through the iterative optimization of the frequency range. And the most relevant EMF will be selected for the further analysis. Okay, next for the methodology of dataset. In here, as we can see on the table 1, this is the dataset of the participant. We have 10 subjects with varying physical characteristics such as BMI, gender, and age. And each subject will be performed 30 tests, resulting in a total is 300 data sample. For the experimental condition, the subject will were instructed to lie in a supine or lying flat position to minimize external movement. The smartphone we are using, that is Samsung A20s, was placed on the diaphragma area at 3 locations, right, center, and left. The measurements were conducted in both portrait and landscape orientation of the phone. For the sensor that we are used, that is ICM 30607 Inertial Measurement Unit sensor that was embedded on the Samsung A20s, located in the back of the phone in the upper right position of the phone. With the sampling frequency, we are setting to 50 Hz to ensure precise capture of the respiration signal without overloading the computational resources. Okay, next for the methodology, as we can see on the Fig 2, this is the flowchart of the system. The first one, we are start and collecting the raw data from the accelerometer and gyroscope, as we can see on the Fig 3. And then we are doing normalization of the signal. We are standardize the signal to ensure the consistency. After that, we are using median filter for removing noise, as we can see on the Fig 4. After we are removing noise, we are decompose the signal and we are do the data processing with VMD method. In here, we will have the result separate EMF, one EMF, second EMF, third EMF, fourth EMF, then 5 EMF. In here, we are selecting the second EMF as the respiration signal due the frequency range of the respiration, that is 0.2 until 0.3 Hertz. After that, we are doing the peak detection to generate and accurate the RPM data, as we can see on the Fig 6. Okay, next for the result, the first testing was axis testing. As we know that accelerometer and gyroscope has three axes. It was x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. In here, we are comparing with the manual test. The result was accelerometer z-axis was identified as the most accurate and stable for the measuring respiration rate. With result was matching with the manual measurement, that is 19 RPM, and no deviation, as we can see on the table 2 or on the Fig 7. Okay, next, the next test was device position and location. In here, we want to evaluate the impact of the device position, landscape or portrait, and diaphragma location. The key result was the portrait center was configured as identified as the most accurate and also reliable smartphone-based respiration rate measurement. This result was influenced by several factors. That was BMI. The higher BMI reduced diaphragma movement, and the second was gender. Men produce more stable signal due to women, and the third was diaphragma location. Center location captured the most diaphragma movement, ensuring better signal stability. And the last test was MATLAB and manual testing to get the accuracy and also metric performance. In here, the system achieved an average accuracy was 95.19% with an error less than 2%. The highest accuracy was observed in subject 9 and the lowest was on the subject 4. For the performance metric, mean absolute error was 0.9, indicating the minimal deviation from the manual measurement. And then for root mean square error was 1.05, reflecting the low error variability. And then for the coefficient of determination was 0.97, demonstrating strong correlation and consistency between MATLAB and also manual result. For the discussion, the system achieved 95.19% accuracy with the portrait center configuration with the most accurate result. This methodology have the strength VMD, minimize noise, and also extract the EMF2 as the main respiration signal. Peak detection ensure accurate and also consistency RPM calculation. But we have also a limitation. In here, we have limitation high computational requirement. The VMD method is demanding, challenging it used for the low specification device. And for the future direction, we hope that the other research develop more efficient algorithm and validate the system with a larger and more diverse population. And the last is for the conclusion. In this system, we developed a smartphone-based respiration measurement system using VMD and peak detection. We achieved 95.90% accuracy with less than 2% error. For the key finding, the portrait center configuration was the best, and also accuracy was influenced by BMI, device position, and diaphragma location. For the system strength of our system, we are offer a portable, affordable, and also reliable alternative to the conventional medical device. But we also have a limitation. We have challenge that includes device position variability and also high VMD computational needs. And also we hope the other researcher need to improve the algorithm and also develop more efficient algorithm. Okay, that's all for our presentation. Thank you so much for the attention and the time that has given to me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you very much for Mr. Williamsyah for the interesting presentation. Okay, so for the question and answer segment, is there anyone who wants to ask Mr. Williamsyah? Maybe other presenters? Okay, well, while we wait for other presenters maybe to ask their question, I'd like to discuss something with Mr. Williamsyah. You mentioned that there are several key factors that influencing the accuracy for your study. If I'm not mistaken, there are actually four factors that I catch. They are BMI, gender, device position, and diaphragm position, which are the most like key factors that influencing your study.
Okay, thank you so much for the very interesting question. So the main factor that really affect the result in this study, the first one is the BMI and also the gender, because in here we are testing three location of diaphragma and also three position of the device orientation. That is landscape and also portrait. In here, we found some several cases like higher BMI can reduce the diaphragma movement, and then causing also a lower signal amplitude and also a slightly higher deviation. And also for the gender, men, because of many men in our subject, there was a flat position in the diaphragma because of the body fat and also etc. So men have more stable data like that.
Okay,
So
so it's
the main factor there was BMI and also the
BMI
gender.
and genders. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'd like to ask if you know maybe other research that you maybe already learned before. Are they also find that these two key factors also the most important in affecting the result of their study? Maybe because in the study you use a smartphone as your device. Maybe another research using another device. And do you happen to know if the key factors are also BMI and gender in other research?
Yes, from the several research that many research that found also the higher BMI can reduce the diaphragma movement because of decreasing like the fat can decreasing the diaphragma movement. But in several research also conduct with another device like inertial measurement unit that put it on some place.
Yeah.
If there is a problem with the gender, they usually create like a simple for the men. This is like the computational. This is for the men. This is for the woman, and then this is for the universal. But in here, we found several cases that gender can also affect. But we also in this test, some subject, several subjects for like the women have also a higher accuracy, like 98% and 97%, something like that.
So it's the like smarter device.
Yes.
because you use smartphone. This is interesting. As I know that respiratory rate usually measure with something like chest strap sensor.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
something like that, and then you use smartphone. So I'm curious if the key factors influencing the result is like different.
Mm.
So
So in
maybe
here also we also inspire like for the seismocardiogram. And
mhm,
here we are inspiring from the seismocardiogram. We also have several similar research in here.
mhm.
Last year we already published about the heart rate measurement, and then we want to
Oh,
expand the research about the respiration because we found also similar key factor that we found for the result.
okay.
That's why we will expand
Maybe
to the respiration.
okay. One more question, maybe because you use the device is like
Mhm.
Samsung A20s. Maybe there's
Mhm.
a reason behind the uh, smartphone you choose for the study and any qualification maybe
And
for
especially there is
for
no
yeah
qualification about
for further
the
research.
yeah for further research, especially there is no qualification for the sensor. This is like the we just explain about the sensor that we are using, and also there is actually no main reason. This is because
Yeah.
the student that collecting the data was using
Maybe
Samsung A20s.
yeah, maybe minimum
Mm.
qualifications for the smartphone to work in the case
Oh,
of your
I
study.
see, I see. Okay. For the minimum in here in this research, we are using for taking the frequency sampling around 50 hertz frequency sampling
Ah.
because we want to collect the respiration rate signal that is around 0.2 until 0.3 hertz. In here, we are using 50 hertz to reduce the to reduce the complexity of the computerized. Uh, Maybe that's all. For the minimum specification, can take around 50 hertz frequency sampling.
Oh, for the
Mm.
device to be used in
Yes.
such a study.
Mm.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it. Maybe from other presenters or participant, any more question? I see that there is no more question. So thank you very much for Mr. William Shah for the interesting presentation and question and answer session. Because Mr. William Shah is the last presenter for today's session in this room. So now we can conclude our parallel session. I thank you very much for all the presenter and the participants who already joined this session. And on behalf of the ICADE's 2025, I would like to thank you all for the exceptional contribution and insight. And I also would like to extend my gratitude for the participant, but I think they already left the room for the questions that they already asked. And I hope the session has been informative and inspiring for we all in terms of the topic, especially for the subtopic of data science for health. And thank you once again. I hope that we can look forward for next year occasion, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Let me conclude this session. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you,
Thank
Miss.
you.